Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. It's a Monday, it's the start of a new week. We like to do something that's a bit light, nothing too heavy to begin with. And just before we do go, I will just point out, t-shirt is... I love that film. Anyway, we've got one here where everyone is... everyone, apart from the SNP, of course, is calling for the same thing. Something we've said all along, both I and, of course, you, good viewer, and that is the axing of the pretendy embassies all over the world that are costing the Scottish taxpayer millions and yet achieve nothing. Everything they pretend to do can be done quite simply and easily by the existing British embassy in every territory in the world. There's no need for a Scottish version of this, unless, of course, you want to pretend that you are a sovereign nation and waste as much money as you possibly can on important things, rather than, healthcare or education, things like that. We've seen how bad virtually every service provided by the Scottish Government is, and it's funny how they can always find money for things like this. Indeed, they've earmarked £35 million from this year's budget just to maintain these embassies, which is strange because they've cut 30 million from the mental health budget. It's enough to drive you mad. Let's have a look, see what's going on, see who's calling for it. Here goes. So, SNP government urged to completely axe foreign embassies in order to save millions and avoid tax rises. Well, it will save millions, but I'm afraid it won't avoid tax rises. It will just minimise them a little bit, bring them down, because everything else is so appallingly bad and everything else is so appallingly ill spent, and of course not to mention all the corruption, that they have to put the taxes up regardless. But that's no option, because thoughts are hard when you're very dim, and boy, is she dim. The Scottish Tories are calling on the Finance Secretary Shona Robertson to axe more than half of Angus Robertson's external affairs budget and focus on economic growth and getting more cops on the beat. I don't see why Scotland needs an external affairs budget. It's not a sovereign nation. Anything involving other countries should be held by the UK government. The Scottish, well, it's not even a government. The Scottish Assembly should be dealing purely with internal Scottish matters. Doing that, of course, would save a lot of money and would stop old Air Miles travelling the world at great expense, because you guarantee he doesn't go anywhere cattle class. He's business and better, isn't he? He's far too grand and far too important to sit with mere mortals like you and I. The Scottish Government has been urged to axe its network of, quote, foreign embassies or back offices and scrap its hated National Care Service bill to make savings during the budget. This is instead of raiding Scots' pockets again. The Scottish Tories have also recommended cutting down the bloated public sector workforce to free up hundreds of millions of pounds. Especially when they create departments over which they have no legal mandate. For example, Jamie Hebburn and his independence department. Yet they cannot do anything about independence. It's not within their remit. They don't have the competency. And there's no reason why we should be paying him about $120,000 a year, plus running a department, plus all those staff. It runs to millions a year. Millions that could be better spent employing doctors, nurses and teachers, surely. Finance Secretary Shona Robertson needs to find £1.5 billion of savings on Tuesday as the cash-strapped SNP executive look to set a budget. It's been reported that a new tax band will be created, making those who earn over $75,000 pay more to the public purse or leave the country. And I think many will, basically. Anyone who can, or at least anyone who can salt their money away south of the border, certainly will. But alternative ways of raising cash have been recommended by the Scottish Conservatives, starting with the scrapping of the National Care Service Bill. This has already been delayed for years, with the full cost hitting £2 billion. And you know what they've got to show for that £2 billion? Sweet FA. Literally nothing. They've got a department, they've got people being paid, they've got lots of bureaucracy, but not one single person is being cared for within the framework. It's a waste beyond belief and beyond compare. If it is axed completely, 128 million could be salvaged and used to spend on other more important issues. A total of 411 million could also be raised through workforce savings if the size of the public sector is cut back to 2016 levels, with 10,700 more staff now being paid out of the public purse. But these departments like to grow because it makes the people running them feel important. And it's all about that. It's all about feeling and looking important. They're not important in any way, but they need to feel important because, you know, they've got these egos to massage, and having a big department and flying all over the world and meeting important people is all part of it. They're a town council. Face it. The Tories have suggested slashing Angus Robertson's external affairs budget by more than half, from 30.5 million down to 14.1. And this goes to international development, humanitarian aid and Brand Scotland. Now, I can understand the Brand Scotland side. I don't actually have a problem with the Brand Scotland side. You want to push, you know, your region, if you will, because you do have an identity. You know, your shortbread, your whiskies, you know, your tourism, come and see Scotland is a beautiful place and all that. I get it. Scottish meat, another big external market, you know, things like that. So I do get the Brand Scotland bit. That I would say, okay, keep it. Absolutely fine with that. Plus also it is an actual thing. It does keep people employed. But humanitarian aid, that's covered by the UK government. You should not be giving away other people's money. International development, again, that's a UK thing, not Scotland. Doesn't need to be getting into. Why would Scotland need to be into international development? What that means, humanitarian aid and international development, literally means handing Scottish taxpayers' money to Muslim countries. There you go. That's what that means. Because since Alibaba took over, every bit of, you know, aid and all this stuff, all the money that's gone out, you know, charity, you've got to do a bit for charity and all that rubbish, has gone exclusively to Muslim countries. Weird that, isn't it? Very weird. So how about none goes out on international aid, none goes out on international development, and you leave that all up to the UK government, and you save the Scottish taxpayer all that extra money because you're not a sovereign nation. The United Kingdom is, and the United Kingdom has already put in the tin for you. Done it paid at the office, mate. Gave at the office. A total of 600,000 could also be saved from axing the government's Planning and Environmental Appeals Division, DPEA, and giving the power to veto planning appeals back to local councils. This money saved could then go towards other important aspects of Scottish life. Yes, I mean, mainly you want to be looking at the moment and sort of focusing on health, given how bad the waiting lists are, the bed blocking is, the lack of doctors and nurses very much underemployed. Anyway, the Tories want to employ an extra 1,000 cops onto the street. Good idea. And have called for a focus on economic growth. Also good idea. You grow the economy, you've got a lot more money going in on the tax base. They want to offer 75% relief on business rates to retail, hospitality and leisure businesses, like what is given out in England, and for which the SNP government received the money and have yet to pass it on. So what have they done with all that money? And to freeze the business rates poundage, the council tax freeze will also need to be funded. Well, I would suggest easing the council tax, abandoning that policy. It's the policy of a moron. Scottish Conservative Shadow Finance Secretary Liz Smith said already the Nationalists are dusting down their usual "it's Westminster's fault" playbook, but that won't wash. The SNP government, which has received the biggest block grant ever, is responsible for the huge black hole in Scotland's finances. And it wasn't Westminster who said, hey, let's freeze council taxes. No, that was Alibaba, the idiot in charge. You let him do that without telling him to sod off, basically. Anyway, she said, the measures I'm proposing will put economic growth as the top priority and provide much better support for local government, two things that the SNP have neglected throughout their entire time in office, which are also major contributors to that black hole. Just round off here, Miss Robertson confirmed that her government would be focusing on reaffirming the social contract, whatever that means, by targeting money to protect people and public services. Targeting money to protect public services, yeah, like cutting 30 million from the mental health budget. Yeah, Shona, I don't understand if I don't know if you understand what protecting public services means, but it isn't what you think it means. And certainly everything to do with independence needs to be abandoned and save untold millions every year. They just can't help themselves, can they? And it's going to get worse. We've got a bit story coming up later, which is going to show how much worse it's going to get for Scotland. But it can't really get much worse when you've got someone as stupid as that running your finances. I'm coming up. Now, over the last couple of weeks or maybe a month or so, we have discussed the many, many savings that can be made throughout the Scottish budget. Mostly independence related, but there are an awful lot of other things, and we've mentioned foreign aid before. But there's a lot of things that they take on upon themselves which should not be at government level. So you have to ask, why do they keep wanting to coalesce the power? Well, it's mainly to do with they want a complete and utter centrist government that controls every aspect of every part of every person's lives within Scotland. They don't want anyone making decisions that they're not part of. They don't want any businesses running that they can't take their cut. Thus, they keep making licenses for that and licenses for this. It's a protection racket. You know, nice business you got there. Be a shame if anything happened to it. And that's all these people are. They are a mafia. They are an organised crime outfit. And they want to insinuate themselves into everybody's life at every level. And you have to ask why. It's because they're Marxists. It's because they're so dangerous. They're so politically dangerous. And they are going to destroy Scotland. And you can see that. And you can see, all you need to do to see how much damage they're doing and how much damage they're going to do is open your eyes and look around and compare Scotland today with Scotland at the turn of the millennium. It's got so much worse. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching this. We'll round off there, but do keep an eye on things. There's a lot more to come. And we've got another story coming up later. I can't say with the order that it's going to be in, but it's to do, again, with the budget and how much worse it's going to be when you see what's going to happen in England, possibly next year. Anyway, well, thank you very much for watching that one. Do keep up on today. Do please hit the subscribe button. We're getting close to the 9,000, which I really would like for Christmas. But other than that, sayonara.